Greetings and various assorted salutations. This is a kind of start of a semester tour of a Canvas course I've built. I don't always do these, and the main reason I'm doing this is to kind of think through some ideas that I'm working on. So, in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of a look at what have I changed between fall 2021 and spring 2022. We'll start with the course U.S. History 2. I teach U.S. History 2 and 3, so 3 will be in a separate video. Um, First off, one of the things that's kind of helpful with U.S. History 2 is the course I've taught the most since I started my career. I've taught a number of different courses, U.S. History 1 and 3, one I've taught the least. I taught Ancient Civ, and I even taught World History for a bit as well. But U.S. History 2 is consistently the class I've taught the most in my academic career up to this point. And so, luckily, that means I have a lot of materials to work with, and that really helps because that can help me better address student interests and things like that. So right off the bat, the first thing that's you'll notice right off the bat is pretty much everything's the same. If you've watched my fall videos, the announcements section has details about the course. You can see that they've kind of been pushed out because one of my classes got a seating chart. That's an exclusive announcement, and I had a silly poll over what season people like the most. Um, but if you were to go into the announcements archive, you can see right off the bat, I've got the same schedule format here. So let's crack that open. But as you can see, I still have the unit pages configuration. I've improved the design of it slightly. Very small changes, to be brutally honest. The big change I've made to the unit to the week calendar is I have the classroom activities, which is what we're working on in class, what to work on. So during work time, what should you focus on first? What are your highest priorities? And then if there's anything due, I've separated that out and I just streamlined that. Additionally, I went through and I've been trying to use the accessibility checker feature in Canvas more to make sure that my stuff is more accessible. And by that I mean the metadata for the course is coherent so that if you have vision or hearing limitations, I think it's supposed to run better. Once again, I don't know if I don't have a lot of experience. So like this is a decorative image designated. This is a heading to tell you what this is, and then these columns in black and here are indicators that these are the headings for whatever this table is. So I'm trying to use those more and get better with it. Also, it's kind of satisfying to see the accessibility checker go from like 5 issues, 2 issues to 0 issues. So it's kind of I've made it into a game to see how accessible I can make things. Um, but no, now one of the things I did note is, and I'm making this video a bit late, a bit into the semester. One of the things the student asked is, why is this double posted? Does that mean we have to do it again and again? And I think I need to clarify this. It's like, no, it's because this isn't due yet, and I don't know what you're going to work on first. Because I tell the students sometimes you might want to just focus on doing your notes, or sometimes you want to focus on different assignments. The notes, however, are due at the end are due at the on the day of the test. But this other stuff is due in February 1st, and so I kind of recommend that. Um, but yeah, so there's some structural changes there. Um, but you can kind of see I'm running a short little unit here. Once again, I still have the assignment checklist. I've expanded it to include the grade category, and I don't know if students are going to necessarily need that feature. The way the courses are all run is every assignment has to have a category and it's weighted. It's like the syllabus says this, but assignments are like 35%, projects are 30, tests are 35% of the total grade. Um, but And so this is kind of a thing to help me sort it out as to, okay, do I have the right balance of projects and assignments? Tests, it's pretty easy to balance them out. But projects and assignments, that's here. Unit resources, this really isn't changed. But we can talk about classroom resources. So one of the things you'll notice is I disabled the view to modules. In the way I teach my course, which is different from others, modules is where I organize my information. Um, and it's how I quickly access materials. However, it's not, I don't keep it neat enough for it to be very practical for students. And so as a result, I've moved to using pages. This puts a lot more work on me, but it also forces me to figure out how do I actually have everything accessible and easy to read. So it's a trade-off. Um, I have to manually put in all these links and make sure they all work, but I'm certain that everything works when the page is all said and done. And so this is basically the resources module only organized into this. So I have the things that people should be using the most are right here. I have assignment instructions here, test support resources, study skills, classroom policy, tech support, useful links, unused content. The junk pages, the junk resources are there. And then I have support resources for parents who are observing the Canvas course or support services as well. But I've kind of organized it. It's more organized than I'd ever had it in my modules. And instead of scrolling through a giant single column list, I've now made it into a double and, well, down here, a triple column list. One of the other things I did is I clarified my language in this course. I was starting to move this direction last semester, but I've really doubled down and improved on it this semester. And so what I did is every page or assignment is titled so that students understand this is what this is. So I don't expect students to ever really consult this page a whole lot, but it's available to them and parents and other interested parties. But every page in Canvas is either called an is called one of these categories. So right off the bat, we have the assignment category. These are assignments, and that's what they are. They're assignments in the course, 35% of the grade or whatever it is set at. I have another category for choice assignments. And this is the solution I found to in giving students the ability to choose assignments. I put the category of choice assignment to indicate there are optional assignments, and you are only doing a certain number of them, and there's instructions provided. When you see the word choice assignment, it indicates that you may not have this particular assignment, but you might have a different one. Projects, easy enough. Tests, easy enough. In class. In class are kind of in class done together activities. And the idea behind these assignments is there are certain things, like I want to teach annotated reading skills, but I also need to go through content because at the end of the day, as a history teacher, I'm expected to cover history. But there's some things like getting into source analysis, or maybe the topic is difficult and hard to understand. I do it as an in-class, all-together activity at the front of the screen. Incidentally, according to exit surveys, these are the most popular type of assignments. Anyways, resource pages have been reorganized as well. I have the lecture one, unit pages, which I've already been using a lot of these designations, but now I'm clarifying what they are in my eternal quest to provide an excess of information. Resource pages and the material pages are connected to choice assignments because not everyone needs every piece of the choice ones. I'll talk about those aspects in a bit. Also, I'm testing a lot of features. Since I already have a lot of the content developed and I'm not feeling like I'm in this eternal race to try and keep up, this semester I'm testing a lot of features, and so I have some prototype things where I'm just testing some functionality and whatnot. Extra credit, there's no extra credit available at this time, but if I do provide it or if I need to provide it, I have a category for it. And then there's the unused materials page, and that's kind of where I post things. It's like, you don't need this to know this topic, but if you want to learn more about this topic, these are some things I've run across. Like in the westward expansion unit, I have a link. In the unused page, I have links to a homesteader's diary or something, and I think my Oregon Trail Let's Play. Not necessary for the course, but if you're interested in this time period, it's fairly reasonable and not too hard for me to provide some additional resources. Um, but no, so this is kind of the big thing. I've refined some of the turn-in processes. I'll talk about those in a bit because people are going to be very interested in those. But a lot of these materials, like note-taking tips, setting up your history notebook, a lot of these materials I developed in previous semesters, and I'm just reusing them. The Kahoot and other review tools, cell phone expectations, I just get that from the school. Common technical errors, that's from the template, but it's based on materials I developed, things like that. Anyways, let's continue the tour. I've kind of consolidated a lot of information here. Let's look at let's look at the welcome module. Now, the welcome module is something I actually rebuilt for this course. Um, I built it to run completely without actually using modules, but I kept the module name in there because I didn't realize it until the very end, and I didn't want to mess with the links and whatnot. But essentially what this does is it takes the student through a series of activities, and the activities vary based on what the student needs. And by needs, I mean it's the second semester, and so a lot of people already have their Canvas stuff figured out. They have their computer configured. They don't need to go through the whole rigmarole of the original system diagnostic program that I developed. And so instead, what this does is this has a series of processes that try and figure out um, what do you still need to set up or what do you need further practice on. So we'll click here to get started. This kind of just walks you through this is what we're about to do. And then there's a student information survey. And the information survey is designed to collect certain pieces of information and determine what kind of support a student needs with Canvas. It's actually called Prototype Selection Hat. And that's because I was testing mastery pathways in this thing. And so what it does is it goes through and it asks various questions, the standard stuff. Do you have a nickname? Have you taken a class with me before? How do you feel about Canvas? And then it asks you some questions about Canvas to determine whether you're actually telling the truth. But if we go into assignment settings, there's a bit more to it than that. So this is not how you normally use mastery paths, but what I configured it to do is based on your answers, it assigned points. And depending on how many points you got, that indicated roughly how much you've got stuff set up based on your answers. It's not perfect. There are some execution errors that I'll talk about in a little bit. So if you got a perfect score or within 2 points of one, you got a thing that said, here's some updates, clarifications, and whatnot. And what this is when you go to this page, we don't need to look at it in editing. So what this is so based on the mastery pathway, so you get a good score, you get directed to these pages. This page is a short video where I talk about, there aren't a lot of changes if you've been through my courses before, but you should take a look at these things next. The course map key, which I just showed you, classroom resources to familiar yourself with what's there, and then I issue a pretest. As you'll note, the pretest is part of every activity pathway. And then the next thing I have is if you kind of did okay, but the data indicates that you may struggle with some of this stuff, you got issued the sample assignment. The sample assignment is just an assignment that shows you how to submit assignments. It's basically a streamlined version of my system diagnostic. It skips some of the steps that are probably no longer necessary. Um, and then you take the pretest at some point as well. Now, if you scored really poorly, what it's going to do is going to walk you through some more things. You'll do the sample assignment, the tutorial test, and the pretest. And so that's kind of one of the weaknesses of the mastery path is you can wind up giving more work to people who are struggling. But the idea here is I'm hoping to front load this stuff, and this stuff's really easy to complete. And by front loading this, I'm hoping that these students who are not understanding how this works kind of get walked through how it works. But once you've completed the information survey, you're basically bouncing back and forth between here. And this is where the weakness of not using modules comes up. You kind of have to expect the students to come back to this page and click. If they click on a pathway that doesn't fit for them, it doesn't take them to the next step. And some students have gotten very frustrated about that because they ignore the results. And this is something I've noticed is, I think, is a problem with modern society. We're so used to just clicking through things to get to the next step. We don't actually like take in information. I know I do it, so, but no. So depending on how many points you get, you have the different, it walks you through the different activities. And when you're done, it's the same thing when you reach to the end. Either way, you get to this page, you've completed the module. And then it has a goofy sign and it has some details. It also gives them access to the student tech tutorials, which students who are having troubles with various things, there's tutorials for that, like fixing your dashboard on Canvas, making sure a tour of Microsoft Word and Google Docs, things like that. So that's the start module using mastery pathways. Bouncing back to the home page, the right home page. Essentially, the big theme of my new design is I've streamlined things. The goal is to kind of improve the functionality of the course. I want to increase student choices. I want to streamline the grading of student choices and things like that. And so that's kind of where I'm coming through from on a lot of these topics. My hope is to make the course more accessible and make it as straightforward as possible. Because I still have students who are out sick. I still have students out with activities. I still have students who for whatever reason, they need to look back at things. And this course is configured that way. One other feature I want to show off is I try to make the assignments more accessible to personal preference. Let's go into one. Let's look at the 4-layer treaties. So the way the assignments are configured, one of the comments I got in some of my exit surveys is that some students have personal preferences of what technology or equipment they like to use. Some students are Microsoft Office all the way. They don't like Google. They never want to interact with Google other than to do searches. They just want to use Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint till the end of time. And then you've got students who are the opposite. They want Google Docs, right, left, here, there, and everywhere. Google G Suite. And then you have some students who they really just do not like computers, or computers are too distracting and they want to do things on paper. And so what I've configured the course to do is not care how you get things done. And so all the assignments, you can get a Microsoft Word document or a Google Doc. The reason why I put both up is, yes, students can convert them once they have the file in either format. But from what I've observed, a lot of people, even though they have a preference for a particular system, do not take the time to learn how to use that system. So a lot of people don't realize that you can convert Word documents into Google Docs and vice versa. And so it's not too hard for me to just duplicate the file type and just duplicate this file into different types. And then I have on how to turn the assignments in on paper. I have a what I like to call a vintage pre-COVID era turn-in box that students can use to turn in any assignment. Um, but kind of the thing I've got here, and to kind of streamline that process, um, what I ask students to do, and they don't always do this. That's one thing you discover with instructions, is people don't always pay attention to them. But essentially, ideally, what they're supposed to do is do the assignment, put their name on it, and turn it into the box based on which class period they're in. And then on Canvas, they're supposed to punch into a box, I turned in this assignment. Um, the reason why I have it do this is if the students follow this procedure, their assignment won't be marked missing or late because they turned it in on paper. Now, there are flaws to the system. For one thing, you can completely ignore it. And it's not too hard for me to fix. If a student turns in a piece of paper, they don't bother to do these steps. And I just have to check a box that says, no, this is not late. It's just turned in on paper. So a lot of my systems, one of the key things I've discovered since I've started using Canvas a lot, or learning management systems in general, you want to have a lot of redundancies in place because people do not necessarily follow instructions. Um, but and to be quite honest, the way this is configured, I don't really care what students submit. They can submit it in Word, they can submit it in Google Docs, or they can submit it on paper. In the grand scheme of things, they all look the same in the gradebook, and they're doing the same work, just some are using a different set of tools. So I don't really differentiate between the three options. Or if a student wanted to start submitting PDFs, they could do that as well. I'm just not that picky. I use all these systems interchangeably and think nothing of it, and so I make it accessible that way. But so that's one of the big features. Oh, for teachers who are wondering how do you make this all work, what I do is I click, I'll show you in this and edit. I might make a separate video about this, so if you feel like, wow, I had to go 22 minutes into a video to find this feature, don't worry, I'll make it more accessible later. So I don't have mastery paths turned on for this assignment. You've got the block of text here. I put in there that you can turn things on paper. I just manually post that. In fact, this turn-in instructions thing, this is on an unpublished page in my Canvas course buried in modules. And I just copy and paste this into every assignment for my ease of operation. But what I set it to is pretty much all assignments are set to text entry and file uploads. This leads to another feature that I added. I removed the ability to submit website URLs. This is because at the time when I developed the original template, I did not know that file uploads included pulling stuff from your Google Drive. So if you have this checked, you can turn things in on Google Drive, you can turn things in on Microsoft Word, you can even link your Dropbox to it, stuff like that. OneDrive, or just files from your computer. So I just check this box and then I put in the text entry because you sometimes even have a few students who they'll type out the numbers and then just answer the questions. And those are actually convenient because I don't have to scroll through the virtual worksheet. So that's available as well. Or if they turn something in on paper, they can go in here and text entry turned in on paper. So, and I see it when it's in the speed grader thing. So this is the new configuration. I'm going to push this out with probably the new Canvas template when I start developing that. But no. And so that's kind of the running theme when it's all said and done in this course. The running theme for the Canvas learning management portion of this course is accessibility. How can I take this course, make it more accessible? How can I factor in the fact that students want to make some decisions in what they learn? And how can I cover the content that I need to cover effectively and efficiently? And of course, the most important thing, mixing in with the blended learning, is this is a reference point. We don't use this all the time, but everything's on there in case we need it for whatever reason that we need remote access, or we just need to go back through and look at things. In any case, I hope you've enjoyed this tour. I'll have to do a US History 3 tour as well, and I'll make a separate video about the mastery pathways stuff I've been messing with. In any case, until later.